One second you're standing on solid ground. The next second, you're falling into a void that just appeared beneath you. Here's how this happens. Underground, there's limestone or other soft rock that slowly dissolves from water flowing through it over years. The rock underneath creates these massive hollow chambers, but the surface above stays intact for a while. It's like walking on a thin crust over nothing. Then one day, that crust just can't hold anymore. Boom! Everything collapses in seconds. Buildings, cars, roads, sometimes entire neighborhoods just drop into the earth like they were never there. The scariest part? These things can be anywhere from 10 feet to 200 feet deep. That's like falling off a 20-story building straight into the earth. And they happen so fast that people often don't have time to react. Security cameras have caught these collapses happening in literal seconds. You can watch the ground just open up and swallow whatever's on top. What makes this even more terrifying is that geologists can't always predict where they'll happen next. Sure, they know certain areas are at risk, places with limestone bedrock, areas with heavy rainfall, or places where groundwater is being pumped out too fast. But the exact location and timing? That's almost impossible to predict. In the United States alone, sinkholes cause over $100 million in damage every year. And also, Florida is basically sinkhole central. The really messed up part is that human activity is making these worse. When we pump groundwater out of the earth for cities and farms, we're basically removing the support structure that keeps the ground stable. The Guatemala City sinkhole, the one that ate a building. May 30th, 2010. Guatemala City. People are just going about their day when, suddenly, a 3-story building, not a small house, a full 3-story building just drops straight down into the earth. Witnesses said they heard a sound like thunder, then watched in horror as the building disappeared into a perfectly circular hole. When the dust settled, everyone was staring at the most perfectly round hole you've ever seen. The hole was about 60 feet wide and 300 feet deep. For perspective, that's deeper than the Statue of Liberty is tall. A building fell into that, and it didn't even fill it up. Here's what makes this particular sinkhole so crazy. It happened because Guatemala City is built on volcanic ash and pumice, not solid rock. Over time, heavy rains and a broken sewage pipe had been eroding this material underground, creating a massive cavity. The city was literally being hollowed out from below, and nobody realized. But wait, it gets worse. This wasn't even Guatemala City's first rodeo. 3 years earlier, in 2007, another massive sinkhole opened up in almost the exact same area, killing 3 people and swallowing a dozen homes. The 2010 hole opened up just a few blocks away from the first one. The government tried to fill the 2010 hole with huge concrete blocks. We're talking massive chunks of concrete the size of cars. They dropped them in, and they just disappeared into the darkness. It took months and an insane amount of material to finally fill it. Now let's talk about something that sounds beautiful, but is actually terrifying in scale. The Xiaozhai Tiankeng in China, also known as the Heavenly Pit. This is the world's deepest sinkhole, and hole that's 2,172 feet deep. That's deeper than 2 Empire State Buildings stacked on top of each other. If you stood at the bottom and looked up, the opening would be so far away, it would look like a tiny circle of light. It has its own complete ecosystem at the bottom. We're talking about plants and animals that have evolved in near total darkness, living in a world that humans didn't even know existed until 1994. Yeah, 1994. We discovered this massive hole in the earth just 30 years ago. And at the bottom, there's an underground river that's been carving through the rock for millions of years. This hole formed over countless millennia as water dissolved the limestone and created a massive cave system that eventually collapsed. What makes this even more insane is that Xiaozhai isn't alone. China has over 400 similar massive sinkholes called Tiankengs. Here's the scary part. These Tiankengs are still forming. The geological processes that that created Xiaozhai are still active. Blue holes, the ocean's dead zones. Okay, now we're going underwater, and things are about to get even creepier. Blue holes are massive underwater sinkholes that look absolutely beautiful from above, like perfect circles of deep blue in the lighter turquoise ocean. But don't let the pretty colors fool you. These things are death traps. Let's talk about the most famous one, the Great Blue Hole off the coast of Belize. This monster is 1,000 feet across and 400 feet deep. From the air, it looks like a giant eye. The first 100 feet or so, pretty normal diving. You see some fish, some coral formations, nice and peaceful. But then you hit the thermocline, the point where the water temperature suddenly drops. And below that, it's like entering another dimension. The water becomes crystal clear, but completely lifeless. No fish, no plants, nothing. Just ancient limestone formations and stalactites hanging from what used to be a dry cave before the sea level rose and flooded it. You're swimming through what was once an air-filled cavern. But here's where it gets dangerous. Many blue holes have very little oxygen in the deeper sections. The water down there hasn't circulated properly in centuries, and it's essentially toxic. Divers who go too deep can experience nitrogen narcosis, basically getting drunk underwater, and lose their sense of direction. Some never make it back up. The door to hell. Darvaza gas crater. Imagine a hole that's been on fire for over 50 years straight. Not a campfire, not a building fire, a massive crater of flames that has been burning continuously since 1971. Darvaza gas crater in Turkmenistan, better known as the door to hell. At night, you can see the glow from miles away, and the heat is so intense that you can't even get close to the edge without feeling high heat. It started in 1971. Soviet geologists were drilling for natural gas in the Karakum Desert. Everything was going fine until the ground beneath their drilling rig suddenly collapsed. The rig, all their equipment, and everything. Now they had a problem. The crater was releasing massive amounts of natural gas, methane, which is both toxic and explosive. So the geologists made a decision that seemed reasonable at the time. Let's just light it on fire and let it burn off. They figured it would burn out in a few weeks, maybe a month tops. That was over 50 years ago. The fire is still going. So there you have it, 6 holes types in the Earth. And tell me which holes we can see next in video, tell me in comment. And also, tell me which hole is your favorite. Stay safe out there.